about the spacesuit. It looked like Spock was wearing that spacesuit.
Right.
I was just curious if, you know, obviously if they don't have it on here, they're breathing our atmosphere. But I mean, why would he have that if he doesn't need it to breathe here?
Well, he wasn't wearing the helmet, but their suits also are very advanced and have other functions. So they would wear certain suits that may contain certain technology for them as well, in case something happens to them, like somebody knocks over their photos. Yeah.
So that there would be an occasion to put a globe on their head.
Yeah, if they go to a planetary body or something, maybe not even inhabited, like they took Meier to Mars once, and he and Ptah did a little walk around Olympus Mons or something, and so they have to have protective gear on for that.
With air, they can breathe the atmosphere.
Oh yeah,
inside
so
there.
Their technology would be extremely advanced. Their ships have certain types of technology for detecting gases in different conditions and whether it's safe to. The windows will change colors under certain conditions and stuff. So you might imagine that since they're about 8,000 years ahead of us technologically, and technology isn't simply a linear progression, it's exponential. You know, we know in 100 years we've gone from, you know, what, to computers and space. So their outfits, their craft, everything is very deliberately created, and their craft are controlled generally, at least in part mentally, by the person that's attuned on a private craft. I don't know about the big one where Ptah has what's called a big spacer that is about 10 miles in diameter. It's a huge thing. It's like they even have a part on it where it's nature. It's like trees and grasses, and I mean, it's beyond sci-fi in a way. You know, I mean, clearly when you get into all of this kind of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Sure. Sir, you had a question.
I'm imagining you're pointing at me.
Yes.
Yes.
But what happened last night that we were supposed to be conscious of?
Oh, what happened? Well, you know that the United States launched a missile attack against Syria, retaliation they called it. I don't remember the Syrians attacking us, though. I was looking for it, and I couldn't find what we were retaliating for. You know, it must be said, first of all, in connection with this case, and actually in my own life, they are not political. They are equal opportunity offenders. They can find something bad to say about most all of us on Earth, as well as good things to say too. But there's nothing. But politics is a partisan viewpoint, you know, and that is one of the things that cripples us intellectually on the planet. And I've noticed that even, you know, just when I look at things, if we were principle-oriented and we were determining what the real true principles and values of human life are, we could disagree on how to get there. But we wouldn't withhold support and everything else because someone on the other side came up with it. You know, politics is so illogical. And I remember hearing when I was younger people say, politics is the art of the possible. And I said, no, it's the art of advantage. It's always advantage-based. There's always a lie involved, always lying. That's diplomacy, it's politics, and they've held the same point of view. They just said, you know, you people are insane. You are destroying yourselves, and you polarize through politics and advantage, and just about anybody you elect, it's, you know, there's corruption all the way through, and believe me, the stuff they've got to say about this country ain't pretty. But it's either true or it isn't, and people have to decide that for themselves. But if we, and you know, it may offend people, but you know, in the context of this information, politics and religion basically trap us. We are enslaved by belief systems instead of liberated by truth and knowledge. And that's where all of this leads to. If people choose, if they're interested in that, they can examine that and decide for themselves. So for right now, does anybody else have a question right now? Yes, sir.
I have two questions.
Two questions.
One is there any connection or acknowledgement of a shift of consciousness since the 2012 solstice? And my second question is, if this is the only verified UFO contact, why are they only contacting Billy Meier and not hundreds of others?
Okay, great questions. They don't refer to a 2012 consciousness shift. What they've said is they recognize and acknowledge that we're, you know, in a maybe a third of a part way into the Aquarian age that they see as really beginning in about 1844, and that, you know, we are now in those, under the influence of those vibrations, that kind of development, which will have, it's got positive and negative like everything. You know, it's tremendous advances in technology, and that can be used for good or for ill, and a lot of, you know, imagination and creation and creativity. But the whole thing really directs itself, the whole case directs itself towards the evolution. Well, I'll put it this way, I'll just jump to saying, in that thing where we saw Billy sitting at the table, it's from our film, The Silent Revolution of Truth, and in the film, Billy says, the meaning of life is the evolution of consciousness. And that says an awful lot. I mean, that's an upward spiral that there's no limiters set on. And that when you get into the cosmology, if you will, that is presented here, what is the creation? You know, this gentleman mentioned, you know, is it God's will or this? Billy asked them when he was in his earlier stages of his contacts, the official contacts in the 70s, do people have God in your world and all that? What's that about? And they said, we don't use that term because we know what it means. And they said, what? They said, God always referred to, in every language, as a matter of fact, there's a 4-letter word, and it all has the same values, apparently, numerologically and all. Anyway, it always referred to the more advanced extraterrestrial beings, human, who were here, lording it over the primitive Earth humans, in some cases interbreeding, and in most cases screwing things up for us badly by encouraging this devotion, the fear, the manipulations, and this goes back a very long way. And there was even, up until 1978, one of the extraterrestrial groups was still based on the planet that was behind all religions in terms of controlling people through, it wouldn't matter what religion, all the agendas were for control. And to create a one-world religion that then everybody would believe and be controlled by. Those people were removed from the planet due to certain circumstances that finally allowed the Pleiaren to do it. They couldn't otherwise because it would have been a violation and all that. So the evolution of consciousness, because what we call spirituality, they said, there's something called the spiritual teaching, which is the core of the case. It's not the UFOs, it's not the prophecies, it's the spiritual teaching, but these things lead us to it. So in the spiritual teaching, what we're learning through the study is we're not yet really in a place where we can learn spirituality. We have to continue to evolve our consciousness to the place where we are then bridging over into true spirituality, but that still comes somewhere in the distant time. It's fine, we call it the spiritual teaching, the teaching of spirit, the teaching of life, you know, it's wonderful. But when we read and study that, we realize what the work at hand is for us now on earth in this time and for a long time to come. And if we decide to embrace that study and test it, it's really like there's no beliefs. This is a belief-free, non-religious approach to learning. And like anything, like if you want to study computers, you want to study car mechanics, you have an instructional, you look, you read, you learn, and you test it out. You know, what happens when you put A into B? You know, oops, wrong thing. So if it's a good teaching in any area, you can test it out and keep progressing through it through your own personal responsibility, experience and learning, gained knowledge and wisdom. And that's what this is. So some people may say, I don't know, I don't like to read that. That's fine. It's not mandatory. It's optional and it's available. And it's not, it doesn't take a, you know, a quote unquote rocket scientist to read it, because as they say, like Billy said to them, how come, you know, when you're telling me about these scientific things, we'll go through a few more before we get right into spirituality. How come you're not using some more scientific terms? And they said, it seems that it's only on Earth, your scientists want to create a hierarchy. where they separate themselves and make themselves above everybody, so they create a rarefied language for it. The truth can be expressed simply and clearly so anyone can understand it. If we tell you that this, is this thing, you understand what we're saying, and you can determine it, and then your scientists discover that, quote unquote, means they corroborate what we've told you in whatever language they dress it up in. The truth is the truth. It's right there. It's evident. So there's nothing here that's meant to create a hierarchy in terms of, well, I'm more advanced in my understanding of this. Billy has an article, it's called To Be of Equal Value. And it's very refreshing because he's saying, look, in the creation, in this universe, this thing that we're really in, that's given life and order and laws of operation to everything, it's an impersonal, it's not a deity. It's a consciousness and yet a structure, and it doesn't have any chosen people, only begotten Son, solitary prophet. It isn't here to create hierarchy or to favor. It does not intercede in your life. So when people say, with good intention, well, I was doing this and the universe brought me this thing or that, yeah, but no. It's not like, oh, wait a minute, did I qualify? Yes, says the universe. I'm now giving you this thing because you're a good boy. It doesn't happen like that. There's laws that apply to everything in life. We know, okay, this material, whatever it is, has a certain duration. It's made of materials that have a certain atomic and molecular structure. This is a different one. This material may not last as long as this material, but everything is held in perfect order by an initial thought, if you will, of this birth, self-birth creation. Wait a minute. All of this is done as creation. It may still be expanding and growing, but the laws of operation are immutable. There are higher laws that we may not yet know about, but they don't violate laws. We're not suddenly going to start floating in our heads because gravity is automatically changing itself out. Is there anti-gravity? Yes. But that doesn't mean that there isn't gravity, if you follow me. So when we are living in accordance with the way life really works, the laws of creation, we find that our lives generally, not that without struggle or mistake, but we keep getting an improvement in the quality of the life that we live. And it's not through belief. They say beliefs are simply the absence of evidence and truth and proof. Find out what is in reality so that you know something. And we all know very little relative about this, truly what life is. And they say, well, look, we know many things, but we don't know everything by a long shot. There are beings that are above us in evolution, and we are moving towards that. So we, meaning them, as a more highly developed human race, have a self-obligation to our younger brothers and sisters to assist them to assist themselves up the ladder of evolution without interference. When a race has attained a true space traveling capability, we may openly contact them if they want our presence and interaction. But when a race like yours is still very earthbound, multitudes of people bound into many different belief systems and such violence and aggression going on all over, all we are allowed to do is to insert information into your world that you may find it. And while it may seem strange to find one man in Switzerland who's now, older guy there, I like to say it this way, and then I'll get you a question. Yeah. That Meier is said to be the seventh and final prophet. It's not a celebrity slot. You know what happens to people that come around to tell truths. They get shot at, nailed up, or hacked to pieces, whatever. So this time they figured, well, this is my version of it. Let's see, we got one more shot at it. This is the seventh time. I know we don't want to start another religion. We don't want a cult to form. So how about by the time people are finding this guy, he's a late middle-aged, pot-bellied, gray-bearded, one-armed Swiss farmer. Perfect. That's the guy. Oh, nobody's going to get all excited and start bowing down and creating kooky stuff. So the reason behind that, it's said in this case, which I cannot prove, is that since, according to the teaching, the human spirit, not what we call the soul, which is something else, transitory, the human spirit is the eternal, immortal, undying aspect of every human being. It's not a personality. you. It is, if you will, the battery and the part piece, the hologram of the creation, of the universe itself, meant to evolve through countless reincarnations as new and different personalities each time in life, not remembering the past lives. We can't be burdened with what we did or didn't do last time. On an upward spiral of evolution till we are evolved enough to be able to know and handle information from previous lifetimes so that we aren't overwhelmed either with fear or joy or love or intoxication of any form. Meier's spirit is said to be enormously ancient and has performed this function as the previously aforementioned 6 prophets before him as those personalities, and this is the final time. In all of the incarnations as a person and the reincarnations of the spirit, he hasn't been some big mucky-muck, a prophet, blah, blah, blah. Many just more mundane. He's been musicians and composers, all sorts of different things, as we all are in the course of evolution. So he was one of the people chosen for this and the most suitable because his spirit had this ancient connection and the potential for this current personality to fulfill the role of this contactee prophet.
They're also saying that he writes the spiritual teaching for them.
That's another thing. I'm going to tell that story in a quick second, but I wanted to make sure I got your question.
Yeah, I just want to kind of sidetrack. I don't want to sidetrack you, but question is, do we have the technology to shoot these things down if we...
Okay, I'll give you 2 seconds on that. Some of the crashes were apparently done because of radar influence or whatever. Some things probably we may have some technology to take down certain craft. I think any extraterrestrials that are actually aware of this world, and remember they have a lot of technology to look into a lot of things, would make sure that they are not vulnerable any longer to such technologies as we may have. It's not the most important part, but Carter had just raised the point about the spiritual teaching for the Pleiaren. First, Meier writes the spiritual teaching for us, meaning he doesn't author it all. There are certain things he authors from his own person and experience and access to information. Much of the rest of the spiritual teaching he is able to take out of what's called the storage banks. You've heard the term Akashic Records, which isn't quite accurate, but it's close enough that we could understand that all information is stored somewhere kind of etherically, and his abilities as this spirit's personalities have had over time, can access information. So he literally takes dictation, like books like The Might of the Thoughts, The Way to Live, The Goblet of the Truth, The Sight, amazing books. And they are taken directly from the teaching of creation itself. And they are meant for all human races to be able to have access to, here's how it works. Now, I was with Billy, this goes back now almost probably 10 years, wait a minute, 2000, yeah, more than that. I think 14 years is when this happened the first time. I'm in his office, 12 years ago. And I was sitting with him, and we were talking about something, I happened to look over, and he has a laser printer there. It was a new printer, he finally was on a computer and all this. And so the printer had all these pieces of paper coming out, they were all there like a bad haircut and sticking out. And I look over and he goes, oh yeah. He says, I write the spiritual teaching also for the Pleiaren, and Quetzal has to always come here and beam down into my office and go over and take all the papers and beam back up to his ship and then go back to the Pleiaren civilization. They realize this is too time consuming. So now they did something with my computer, so all I have to do is write the teaching out and then type in, and it goes to a separate disk through a server to something and it's transmitted directly over there. And then he says, but something isn't quite right, and it's going to be fixed so I can do this because Zafanat Paneak is coming in a couple of weeks to fix my computer to do that. I'm going, okay, so I think so now you're telling me you have an IT from outer space. Okay, well, I don't even have one from Earth. That's why I have computer problems. So I came back in about 6 months, and I thought, I'm not going to see if this guy's just putting me on, right? So I said, Billy, how's your computer, you know, with the type, oh, yeah, he says, you know, Zafran, not Panea King. He fixed my computer because, you see, I write the spiritual teaching for the player, and Quetzal always has to come in. Same thing, and, you know, just like that. And he says, but he fixed that, but he screwed something else up on the computer. He's got to come back to fix it. And go, oh, my gosh, okay. So there were a total of 3 times where I had come back on visits, total a couple of years later, and I would ask him each time just to see if I'm going to trip him up, because I feel I have that responsibility. If I'm going to do this, represent this material, I want to know that I'm dealing, you know, I have no reason to not, but I'm going to try to really vet this guy as much as I can. I have never found him to tell me something that wasn't true. And I've never found anything in the material that turned out to be false, a falsehood, a lie. There are things I cannot prove from the far distant past or the as yet unarrived future. But in the past, let's say dozen years even, we have found, as I've said, over 200 specific things Meier's told that have been corroborated. Not as new as, yeah, they're new discoveries to our scientists, but they're not new, and they're not new to me and other people. And this will keep on happening. It's probably even this week. If we go online somewhere, there's another one, because they're always happening. So with that, I'll jump to some of this. I've bolded a few things, because back in '51, not only is Meier warning about the increases in the storms and frequency and violence of them, and floods and blizzards, he's talking about damage to the ozone layer. In 1951, he's talking about unnatural climate change. That's man-made climate change. 51, 58, 64. Rising global temperatures, changing precipitation patterns, glacial melting, climbing sea levels, extreme weather, all of this stuff. Pandemic diseases, food and water shortages are coming, folks. Disputes over refugee resources. 51, 58, 64. Hike. Oh yeah, this is what the Pentagon came out with in 2014. They call it their climate change threat multiplier. In case you can't tell, they're exactly what Meier verifiably published up to 63 years before. He's 14 years old and he starts publishing this stuff. And the third millennium, when big parts of the continents disappear, that's yet to come. And he talks about all the natural disasters that people will again rebuild in places that they shouldn't because they forget too quickly. Phantasmagoria through movies and television as they later, because they're creating this, which we already now have. We can't tell what's real and what isn't anymore. You've got CG, all this stuff. They later will, through a worldwide interconnecting of computers and electronics. What do we call that today?
Twitter. Facebook.
Election.
How about the internet? Work with me. It isn't Al Gore who first created. They deceive themselves and see things that don't exist. Their sense for reality disappears, whereby they lose themselves more and more and become more and more malleable and manipulable. Terrorists will spread murder and destruction worldwide. 1958, an unimagined impending asylum seeker problem breaking over the industrialized countries, going to have high levels of asocial immigrants who release a crime wave that's already flooding through Europe and here too, folks, if we are honest with ourselves. And I don't mind going into explaining that if you need it. This is what I talked about before with the earthquakes and all this stuff. The earth collapses in on itself. Can you say sinkhole? That's what this stuff is. If you look, this guy Dutchson's, when he shows where all the fracking is going on the earth and everything, there's always sinkholes, earthquakes. Oklahoma, a mega center of petroleum extraction. They're having earthquakes galore. In '58, Meier specifically, in addition to the 2 U.S.-Iraq Gulf Wars, the second one of which will be led by a president who's the son of a former president. That's in there from '58. The Bushes. Radical Islamist terrorism is foretold along with fall of Berlin Wall, AIDS by name, plastic credit cards, portable telephones, the internet, hoax first. I mean, as he said, and it will be that fanatical Islamists, not Muslims. These are people who are not true Muslims. They're just psychopaths who want to kill under the name, so they go under that. Carry out bloody revenge on the distant descendants of the Christians for their earlier crusades when they accomplished their deadly and destructive acts through irrepressible terror all over the world. You have to pay attention to what's coming, folks, because it is. I'm going to skip through.
Das wird weltweit sich greifen, wenn nicht endlich wirklich etwas getan wird, das greifend ist. Die einzige Lösung wäre eigentlich eine multinationale Friedenskampftruppe. Das ist das Einzige, das wirksam ist, denn nur da unten die Syrer und die Iraker gegen den IS, die können rein nichts ausrichten. Und mit dem Bombardement, das die Amerikaner veranstalten, da unten wird auch nichts gebracht. Das ist nur Geldmacherei. Jede Bombe kostet sehr viel Geld, die sie runterschmeißen. Dadurch wächst die Waffenindustrie, macht Profite und damit hat es sich. Aber es ist nichts damit getan, um den IS aufzulösen.
The actual number of IS terrorists already in Europe and already in the United States is extremely high, the sleepers. We have not seen the end of that by a long shot, and unfortunately, things like last night, this further bombardments of Americans, this only antagonizes.
Der Terrorismus greift weltweit sich mit dem IS, genauso wie mit Al-Qaida. Nur noch viel schlimmer. Wir haben noch nie, seit Menschengedenken, haben wir noch nie einen solchen Terrorismus gehabt, mit so derartiger Morderei und Zerstörung, wie es der IS macht. Es hat diese Beziehung noch niemals in diesem Rahmen gegeben.
Okay, so basically that is going to still be a worldwide problem of enormous magnitude because terrorism is a tactic. It's not something you can fight against really. You can try to prevent things, but it's a tactic. It's guerrilla warfare, you know, for another term. The point of all this stuff, which I can, you know, all these things that have been specifically foretold, which wasn't necessarily the case throughout all of history, where we knew. This was in 1987, Meier publishes, the Russians will move their troops to Arkhangelsk. In 2012, the Russians moved their troops to Arkhangelsk. We've had this published. This kind of stuff, the fall of France that's coming from radical Islam.
But Arkhangelsk was a Russian territory. That's a Russian territory.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So if they moved
specifically to a location where they are under year-round cloud cover to prepare for attacks against Scandinavia and the attack that will come against the U.S. should we keep on provoking the Russians. I got to lecture twice at Northern Arizona University at the invitation of a skeptical professor, and I had sent him the information on the attacks in Paris beforehand. And so on November 15, when those attacks came, the next day he wrote me to say that this is what, he said, more on this later, but guess what the first thing I said to Laureen, who was his wife?
Get out.
Yeah.
He spells it the same way as me.
There we go. When we first heard about the Paris bombings, I knew this one was on its way, thank you, because I sent him Meier's information. And then, okay.
Well,
so,
somebody maybe organized it with you.
No, it's not quite that way. A lot of this stuff, and I'm going to move through so we get to the part where we're a little more interactive on the self-responsibility level.
We can go on a little longer.
We can? Okay, good. Then I won't rush, but we'll
we don't
get
have
to
to end it at 4. We can make it longer.
Perfect, for those that want to hang in. All of this stuff about war with Russia is long and specifically foretold, warned against, so that people who decide, what do I do as a human being to help certain things not occur, because it's said that it's our responsibility. And here they describe exactly even what happened last night. This is from 1987. In all, America will play the most decisive role when in the guise to strive for peace and to fight against terrorism. It invades many countries of the earth, bombs and destroys everything, and brings thousandfold death. The military politics of the USA will know no bounds. Here's the thing about this. Truthfully, this isn't from 1987. These are the Henoch prophecies. Henoch, we know as Enoch. These prophecies are 10,000 plus years old and were translated into current language so that Billy would understand it in 1987. They identify the different countries. The predictions of Jeremiah are the same. They're ancient. These were the same spirit form as Meier. These were prophets who were able, either through their own consciousness powers or through time travel, to see the future, to warn against it, that we may become, it just keeps on going. American aggression, they're very clear about it. This is about Russian attack on the US and Canada that's coming, if this keeps going. War with Russia. They're talking here, he's talking about computer-controlled weapon systems. Even the fact that this was published in '87. And enormous natural catastrophes. Rolling walls of fire and violent hurricanes will rage all across America. You know what's happened up here. These firestorms, these things have been specifically forewarned of. We can go, well, I don't know about this and I don't know about that, when you keep on getting one after another and there's hundreds of them, maybe the lights go on for us. We go, well, what do we do? The destruction of the WTC, i.e. the World Trade Center by terrorists, will only be beginning. Published 1987, originally written more than 10,000 years ago, and described. Okay.
Yeah.
This is one that Meier was taken to see. He took 11 photographs of it. This is the coming earthquake for San Francisco. The investigators got to see 11 photos. I'll go through this quickly. I'm not going to go through all the details, except to say, when they are looking at 11 photos on the table, they're trying to figure out, they're going, well, these aren't paintings. This is San Francisco. There's the Transamerica building. There's this, there's that. When does this happen? Billy says, I'm not allowed to tell you. They look down at the cars in the street in about 1978 is when Billy got on that trip into the future. And Wendell Stevens, Lieutenant Colonel Wendell Stevens, U.S. Air Force retired at the time, the cars look different than the cars of today. They're rounder, more like, the Beetle, the Volkswagen Bug. More glass in the windshield. Some of the glass goes right into the roof lines. And there's no external projections for the rear view, side view mirrors outside. Tesla, Toyota, Mercedes, etc. right now are all waiting for permission to put the cameras inside the screens so that the rear view mirrors won't be on all these new cars with all this glass that we see on the streets today and in the coming years. 1978? Nobody was seeing those cars. How would he know? How would he know? So there's information about it there. I'm going over some of the films because all of this is available on my site for free. You can look at it all. And this was the warning that they first gave them in 1975 and again in 2012. The superpower USA could come to an end after 2020 if nothing in this country changes for the better by then. Now, this is worded in a very specific way. Superpower USA stands for United States of America. What you need to know is that Meier, in 1981 and again in 1987, specifically foretold 2 coming civil wars to America. I read the first one from 81 in 86 and I laughed out loud, saying, what's this guy thinking? Civil wars in America? I'm not laughing anymore. We are in already the early stages of the first Civil War. All the polarization, all the crazies acting up on this side, all the crazies acting up on that side. So what leads to civil wars here? Political machinations, ongoing polarization, religion, culture, race, color, this, that, and the other thing. leftist extremist violence, which we saw right after Trump was elected, and retaliation from extreme right. Here you go. And everything gets dragged into that. Let's prove the prophecies wrong. That's always been my particular mission, to help prove these things wrong. And the only way I know of doing that is to bring it to public awareness. In 2008, Meier is told, and I had another set, Clinton will never become president. She would have unleashed a completely devastating, unprovoked nuclear war with Russia, which deep state, shadow government forces now push Trump to do. Last night, we entered into a whole new phase of insanity where Trump, who said, we're bringing the troops home, we're leaving Syria alone, launches a missile strike. And he does it in a robotic announcement at a podium. And all they have to do is, whenever they were ready, whoever they are, and we know who some are, is to whisper in his ear, nice family, you remember seeing the JFK film? Now this is what you're going to do. It doesn't matter who's sitting in that chair. Trump, certain moronic, you know, what do you call it, agendas, certain which were good. Clinton would have put us all, we'd be crisp. And this is what the play iron told Meier about Trump. In June, before the election, he will become the next president. If Meier reveals this beforehand, because he knows that Billy was going to say, well, can I publish this? He said, no. He'll be killed by the Secret Service people and by Democrats. He's not a Republican. He's a one-man party in himself. He's a chaotic and catastrophic human being, but otherwise well-meaning and not bad. He wants peaceful political, military, economical agreement, especially with Russia, who's never done anything to this country, which the left forgot about. Danger from power-hungry schemers, as per Obama, who came into office as the best person to ever occupy the presidency, who got turned into doing all this crazy stuff and drones. And they said, they told Meier, they said, you know, because he asked, what about Obama? You know, back at the time, they said, well, as a human being, he's the best person to ever sit in that office, and there's a great hope for him. He actually is one of those people on Earth who's connected to this mission from a long time ago, as Gorbachev was. And then by the time his reign of power ended, they said, he was turned like the rest of them. They just got to him. These people that are deeply entrenched, some are public and many are not. Now, what they told him at that time, there will be false post-election machinations from opponents of Trump. That's the Russia thing. Never happened, but they're going to try and get him out of office any way they can. He will change some of his positions that he expressed in the campaign. He's absolutely wrong regarding climate change and healthcare, but could change, maybe. So this is where we go to the idea of principles, looking for right values. It might be somebody, oh, it's the worst personality, he's just, but wait, he's espousing something of value, support it. You don't want him in that office? Vote him out. You don't create this kind of thing that is designed to overcome the will of those people who elected him. Just election. We don't like it? Vote him out. But that's not the agenda of the people who feel they are entitled to reign and rule. Because when we really know the backstory on the powers that be in either party, you don't want anything to do with any of them. This is the thing. And in order for this to happen, deceitful machinations will be initiated after the election in order to prove allegedly false election results by which Trump has illegally won his office. However, what will result of this planned deception, this we have not yet fathomed, which is why I cannot give any details of this. It's still in flux, at least as of November of last year.
How come they don't give detail?
There's certain things that they give a lot of details on, other things they hold back so that we work out without relying on, well, the outcome's supposed to be this way, so we're not going to do anything. We just say, we don't know. This is a whole thing on America's civil wars. I'm not going to go into it. The only way to avoid them, we've got to promote understanding and seek cooperation. Focus on the common values and study the spiritual teaching. It's not political. It's not religious. There's no beliefs. It liberates one to become their own authority in life. Of course, all authorities have to learn more. And again, you know, what happens after 2020 will depend on those who succeed Obama as their advisors, as president's advisors, which internal and external policies they pursue. As long as we have the military-industrial complex telling Trump or anybody else in office, you bomb this one, you bomb that. We've got troops in 100+ countries around the world. It's not our business. But cause and effect tells us what's coming here. This is a nice, hopeful moment. In this case, we are told that true peace, the real turning point in our world, will come from the women, what they call the mothers of the new millennium. The women who come into power to create peace, love, freedom, and harmony. At first there will be some, false leaders in there because everything has that connected to it, but they will come in and put down that despotic rule, that aggression from this overcharged male dominance. The male has its role, the female has its role. We're not meant to be androgynous. There's plus and minus in the universe for reasons. But we've got to understand that women, to truly take their power, they don't start emulating men. It's like, I don't understand why there are women boxers in MMA and they want to be hard bodies. And I used to say to my friends, I don't want to date anybody that can bench press me. It's like, why can't you just have, females be females, males can be males, and we can get the benefit of that. And that polarization, that opposition is part of the growth. You have to have that. You have to have little conflicts here and there, disagreements, so that evolution and thinking can take place. But it will be the women then who will ultimately be the leaders on Earth. It's a little ways in time in the distance. As a matter of fact, more than a little. This is new from Meier, and this is very important. The USA and the rulers of the USA shall be imperiled in the future in many ways. Goes on to tell from who. So that the US population breaks up into different population groups. That's the Civil War. The imperiling. I think Trump is a target of the imperiled rulers and others, maybe on any and all sides of the aisle. The economy, the wages of the employed will drastically decrease. This is worldwide, and provoke enormous financial problems in all population strata of the working world. This is what we are looking at the beginnings of right now, if you watch the markets and everything, a global financial and economic crisis of such proportions as has never before been seen. Very much trouble coming, scarcity of commodities. This isn't for fear, it's for warning, preparation, thinking.
Stock market's taken.
Even in the USA, the people will be dispossessed. It's a pretty heavy term. As a consequence of the global financial crisis, which will become a pretext for deploying the military and police forces against the angry and partly also heavily armed population. Why do you think there's such pushes now, ever intensifying, to disarm the population? An armed population doesn't roll over for a dictatorship. And we won't even get into some of the things about the shootings and who's behind school shootings and other things. I will say that some years ago, Meier wrote that since 2001 to I think 2015, he said, all but 6 of 175 so-called terrorist acts in the US can be traced back precisely to the FBI and the CIA. False flags. Here's the core of our problems. Here we go. These are some of the basic steps. First of all, it is non-religious and belief-free. So each human being takes complete responsibility for themselves. Not that they have to do that in order to partake of the spiritual teaching. It's just that when you do that, you're already, whether you're studying the spiritual teaching or not, you are doing what the most evolutive thing is for yourself from the get-go. You're not being ordered about by hierarchies, religious, political, or otherwise. Cause and effect, understanding, that is the immutable law. Everything that we think, we feel, we do, starts as a cause, a thought, causal thought, and leads to an effect. Every single thing. Everything that's visible to us in this room, apart from the living life forms, us, if there's a planter, I don't know, this is all thought made manifest. That's what you look around. And we are thought made manifest in a sense too. Everything in our lives is our thoughts made manifest. Whether we are consciously aware or not, which is one of the reasons we are, asked to start to see things exactly as they are, to employ that neutral positive thinking. What is? Not what am I afraid of? What do I want? First, what is? Because we are then learning to control our thoughts, knowing that our thoughts lead to the life we live, to the creation of all of the things, the feelings and our actions. If we are conscious, 24/7 if possible, that we are thinking, and what we are thinking, even while we're doing other things. If my mouth is moving over here, we're sleeping, we're eating, we're holding hands, whatever it is, we are aware, we're conscious of what we are creating, what we're thinking, because it always leads to feelings don't arise without thoughts. I don't mean a feeling like, ooh, that's sharp. I mean feelings that come from the human being. They only arise from thought. So if we consider that, we don't even have to say we know it. If we consider that, we start to notice, oh, I'm thinking about that. How does that feel? What are the thoughts I have? How does it make me feel? That is a 24/7 option for human beings, because the more we can observe and control our thinking, the more consciously we direct ourselves in life. Doesn't mean we're error-free. Everybody has to make mistakes in the course of evolution. We don't want to make the same ones over and over. So when we're aware of what we're thinking and how we're feeling about it, then we can move things in our consciousness to create better thoughts for better feelings and better actions. It's really, life is simple in that sense. It's not necessarily easy always, but it's simple. So, and that's the reason for all this, the spiritual teaching. So it's the key to our future survival, individually and collectively. That means, I'm reiterating because it is through repetition, we don't have these imaginary beings that are responsible for us. Nobody's responsible for us. If you count out of the trillions of prayers that have been sent skyward over the past thousands of years, you really try to figure out which ones ever got really specifically verifiably answered, other than through some sort of coincidence, synchronicity, or you did it yourself. You go, gee, why am I following that? Okay, once again, seeing things as they really are, control. We're going to do a little process here in a minute, so I'm just trying to prime this pump. Yes?
Well, a prayer is just like a thought.
Well,
so you can create your own reality through your prayers. And especially because the prayers have so much feeling attached to them, which I think is necessary for like a very forceful or successful manifestation.
So if I take the concepts in here, I would say what they say is, yeah, prayer is great. If you're not praying to something outside of yourself,
right.
Praying to your own spirit, your own consciousness to awaken, to bring forward to you that which will serve you better. And
I'm sorry, but don't you think that if you're praying, even if you're praying to God and you think that God is going to come and, mow your lawn or whatever, that it is a thought. It is your picture in your mind. You put so much energy and focus into painting that picture and the energy that goes into it.
But if there's no place that it really gets delivered for efficacy, just to be blunt, if there's no sky daddy, guy in the sky, going, okay, hold on, let's see.
Right, it's your turn to get something.
Here's the thing, and this may be harsh for people that have strong beliefs, but think about it like this. If you say to somebody, is the God of your belief system omnipotent, knows everything, and all that, okay, and made the world, the universe, all that stuff perfect, right? All this stuff is operating, I didn't do it, no, you didn't do it, no, there's God that. Why are we praying to that being? Don't you think that an omnipotent being doesn't need to be reminded, hey, down here, come on, what am I, chopped liver? I want this, I want that. No, it's not necessary. If there's an omnipotent being, it's got it. It knows whether or not you need something, except the fact is that since we're self-responsible and innately equipped with everything to develop in ourselves, to answer our own prayers as best they can ever be answered, that's why, believe me, no, don't believe me, but consider this. If prayers were really answered, there'd be very few people left on earth because everybody's praying to destroy the next guy. You know, we pray to our God to kill those beings and to win this football game and to, oh really? You know, the creation is neutral. It doesn't take sides in wars, in football games. It doesn't have chosen people, solitary prophet, only begotten sons. No. That's why I was saying before, Meier wrote a thing, to be of equal value. All human spirit forms, as different as they are from each other, consider that, trillions of them, they are of equal value. Some human beings, in each lifetime, we are more advanced than someone in this, we're less advanced than that. But intrinsically, we are of the same value. In the viewpoint of the creation, it's simply given us a piece of itself to merge eventually one day back into the creation, which is what this is about. Well, it's a long way off. So there's no favorites. There's nothing, in that sense, the creation is the all-encompassing. We don't need to pray to it. It's done its thing. We should pray to awaken ourselves to what's real. There are ways to draw forward into ourselves, and I'll get into one of them, that which we can bring into practical use in this lifetime from past lives if we know how to program. Because while you said as much emotion and feeling into a prayer, this is also computer. This is also enter into the program, and it is so. This is what we're programming for. Repetition doesn't hurt. Maybe it's fine to have more and more energy into it, but if we are clear about our intention and what we are doing, we don't have to get all charged up and, you know, super passionate. You know, the passion, follow your passion. We'll follow your reason, your desire, your plan. But if we're clear about it, we create it, we institute it, we release it into creation, knowing that the might of the thoughts is how things work. All those evil people out in the world, the so-called elite and everything, they know this. They know how it works, with one exception. They lack the conscience. They lack the compassion. They lack the consciousness of other and service to other, and consequences to others are important. They simply know how to get things. They do this. They ceaselessly move towards their goals, but rather brutally, without consideration to anybody else for it. They know this is the computer. You program your intention, you follow through, you pay attention to what comes your way, you use it to get where you're going. We, who are just generally interested in a slightly more loving kind of an existence, we also get cowed by different beliefs. They're not stuck with those belief systems. They're going to go, yeah, right, okay, keep praying. They're going, I know how to get where I'm going. And we're worried about being nice, not hurting anybody. I want that, but I don't want anybody. You know, fine. Then don't be apologetic for what you want. Be reasonable. Vet it in your own consciousness. And when you decide that you are worthy of it, and it is a good thing for you to move towards, attain, have, or whatever else, then affirm that and march towards it. Because then, with your thought, the might of your thought going out, everything cause and effect. So there will be impulses and things coming back to you. Because the universe is set up to work that way. It's not there to go, oh, Fred just came up with something he wanted. Will somebody go out? It's just automatic. It works like that. So when we grasp all this in the spiritual teaching, we can even have strong opinions about things. Because being able to be neutral, positive is not being weak. We simply don't attach unnecessary emotion and fixedness. We could stand very firmly for certain things and against other things and still have a neutral, positive frame of mind. Non-polarizing. We're not deliberately creating oppositions. We are creating things which may be opposed and have opposition to them. But we are creating something for its intrinsic goodness, and now we have to determine as we progress towards it, is it all good? Is it still the same? Do I want to modify it? Look what's coming here. Oh, that's so. This is our responsibility. put it out. That's what people that overpray, it's like if there was a cosmic UPS guy, he doesn't know what to deliver, where, and when, because his stuff is all, oh, and I want to, and I want to, and I want to. Good luck.
Okay.
So as we've said, the might of the thoughts. Thoughts lead to feelings, feelings lead to actions, and that accords with the law of causality. This is, cause and effect. We all know about the pendulum. The law of the pendulum, I like to call it. A little cause, a greater cause, bigger effect, things swing around, it's delightful. There we go, whoa, look at that. But it's coming back like a wrecking ball, or it's bringing you some bounty because you created it correctly. And all of these things are connected. Environmental damage and devastation, terrorism, attacks, human behavior, human thinking.
Where do you learn about these things?
It's all available, most of it for free, a lot of it, on my website. I have cards here.
No, I mean, be certain how to conduct yourself.
Okay, I will get to that. I said there was a new translation of the teaching of Emmanuel. It's called the Talmud Emmanuel. That's on my website as well. And rather now than go into more about it, because all this stuff is available, if you're interested, I'll give you a card, website and blog is there. But to answer that question, it is through studying teaching. Just like whatever you took as a major, whether it's in high school or university, to study something, to become proficient, you study the spiritual teaching. And the funny part about this kind of teaching is the more you read it, the more it seems like, I don't remember reading that before. Oh, gee, that's in there too, because we still have to really saturate ourselves more and more with the opportunity to have this stuff come to us so that we can take it into consciousness if we want. When we speak about prayer, by the way, this is a little bit about Emmanuel. There were 17 female disciples, not a one of which made it into the Bible. 17 women. They were more important than the men. That's why they weren't in there. How Emmanuel actually healed people and performed so-called miracles. About the healers who worked with him, unknown information about his wife and children, and what happened after the crucifixion. Emmanuel didn't raise people from the dead and all the rest of this. He was taught, remember the so-called missing years of Jesus and all? He was being taught not only by the Pleiadian, but in the Himalayas, by very advanced yogis and things there who were able to teach him great control over the body because they knew he's going to get crucified. He's got to appear to be dead, or they really will kill him. When you read this stuff, you go, oh my gosh. Not only that, but you see that with miracles, the miracle was he was taught a couple of main things. One, he became a master herbalist. He knew about all the uses of all the plants in the area. So when people came in with physical afflictions, meaning things that could be treated, he could provide a balm, a salve, an ointment, a tea. He knew what those things did. But also he knew people. He understood human beings at their core. So when people came to him with what we would call psychic disturbances, psychological, emotional illnesses, demons which don't exist, meaning disturbances in the psyche, he could understand a person so well that through his suggestion, he would reach their own inner consciousness whereby they could mobilize their own healing powers. There's a hypnotist, therapist whose name was Erickson. I forget his first name.
Milton.
Yes, Milton Erickson. And he would, it just reminded me right now, he would sit and he would tell people stories. They didn't know what the hell he was doing, but they would walk out of there and suddenly their lives were straightening out. He was someone who, intuitively or whatever, had this ability to reach people. And hypnosis was a part of that, a genuine kind of hypnosis where he could entrain people, relax them, help them to initiate and mobilize their innate healing. This is not the age for all of us to be running around healing each other. I used to do New Age comedy for about 12 years, and I would say, in the New Age, there's no unemployment. Everybody's a holistic healer. Can I adjust your chakras? Yes, you can. Will you run my meridians? Yes, I will. So everybody's running around healing everybody, and what they're saying is, no. In this time, learn to heal yourself through your consciousness and other things. Don't not go to people who can assist you physically, or mentally, emotionally, even psychiatrists, they don't rule that out. And even in certain cases, Some people need psychiatric drugs because they are so incapable, because of chemical disruptions, whatever. Don't look down on people that need to take an appropriate medication. They can be helped then with a good therapist. It's like the right tools at the right time. But don't make it your calling to run around and quote-unquote heal people. Heal yourself. Be the example. Billy teaches by example. He doesn't walk around ever talking about UFOs. He's working with gardening, helping people do things. He's just a guy. This is the original, I'll get you 1 second, sir. This is the original Lord's Prayer from the Talmud. My spirit, you exist within almightiness. May your name be holy. May your realm be born and awaken within me. May your power unfold itself within me, on earth and in the firmaments. Give me today my daily bread, so that I recognize my guilt, and I recognize the truth, and lead me not into confusion and delusion, but deliver me from erroneous assumption, for yours is the realm within me, as well as the power and the knowledge forever. Amen. Now, this is where these terms were explained better for these times. It wasn't the spirit within that we are told to pray to so much as our own consciousness at this time in our evolution. My consciousness, you exist within all. May your name be, that name equals spiritual and consciousness-based power. Holy is controlled. May your spiritual and consciousness-based power be controlled and venerable. May your power unfold itself within me and in the firmaments in all consciousness levels. And then the rest of it. So that, of course, got changed into a Father in heaven kind of thing outside of us. So let me jump into something right now. I think we can. This is the Salome Peace Meditation. This is something that's done here on earth, 2 weekends a month. It is done still on behalf of us by 3.2 billion extraterrestrial human beings to help us bring peace into our world, which is enshrouded in heavy negativity. Salome Ganan Ben Urda Ganiber Asala Hesporona. Peace be on earth and among all beings, from an ancient Lyran language. And that is recited, it's just out recited for 20 minutes, any way you want, silently, look under your breath, loudly. Some people sing it in a group. Do it. Everybody can do it. They don't have to follow each other. And this is the actual symbol. Now, this is something to think about. Do you recognize anything in there? Something look mildly familiar?
Tree of life.
Yes, tree of life, and
Peace sign upside down.
turn that upside down, and you have what we think is the peace symbol, which is a symbol for death.
Yeah.
People for 60 years have been walking around carrying signs with the rune for death. The sword, the rune for death. This is the tree of life, the true peace symbol. When people give each other the peace symbol, do they do this? No, they do this. There it is. So this is the true peace symbol. We have books with hundreds of these symbols. There are actually millions. Meier learned over 3.2 million symbols to recognize when his conversations are transmitted back to him, the ones with the play iron, transmitted back in symbols, not in German. He has to, with one hand, he types them out, simultaneously translating them into German, sometimes at over 100 words per minute with one hand. We have film of that. It's kind of cool. Okay, so let's talk about, well, what is the spiritual teaching? How would we do that? And let's see if we can take, I have a DVD here which has a whole workshop on the spiritual teaching. The first half of the DVD is a lecture in the Meier case, did it years ago. Second half is a full-on, step-by-step means of doing this thing. I called it, when I created this process in 1990, I called it Standing in Spirit because it happened to me while I was standing.